Just here.
Good evening, everybody. We'll get started. I call to order the July meeting of the Fox Point Village Board. It is Tuesday, July 10, 2018. It's 7 p.m. I welcome you all. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Trustee Fonstad?
Here.
Trustee Kravitz?
Here.
Trustee Ullman?
Here.
Trustee Sumner? Trustee Toretto?
Here.
Trustee Simchich? And President Frazier.
Here. We move to agenda item 2, persons desiring to be heard. People may be heard on items on or off the agenda. Everybody gets 3 minutes. If you'd like to defer all or part of your time until an agenda item is called, we certainly may. We have one speaker card, Mr. Andrew Lamb. Mr. Lamb, please step up to the microphone.
Thank you.
State your name and address.
Andrew Lamb, 2218 West Chestnut, Mequon, Wisconsin. Been a resident there for 35 years. I am Andy Lamb. I'm running for District 23 State Assembly. I'm a Democrat. I've got some very good progressive ideas on the environment and education and local control and good government. And let me tell you, I know a little bit about good government. For the past 15 years, I was finance director with Ozaukee County. Ozaukee County has the lowest taxes in the state. We raised our bond rating to AAA. I won 14 years consecutive awards for not only our financial statements, but our budgets. I worked across party lines to get many of those things done. My position was if I make my supervisors look good, they'll have my back when I'm on something. Prior to that, 2 years with North Shore Fire Department, I was the CPA that was brought in to consolidate all 7 communities into Miami. 10 years in agricultural economics, 14 years in manufacturing. I've seen a lot of things in the state. I know a lot of its industries. I guess I haven't done retail until now. And retail politics is something new. So I did run for county board as supervisor in Ozaukee County in Midnight. And they recruited me at that time to be the public secretary. Had a very good relationship with all of the county board supervisors in Ozaukee County. All of our elected people were Republicans. I worked very well with them. Our treasurer and I had a very good relationship, especially during the Great Recession when we guided the county through those times and raised our bond rating to AAA. So thank you for allowing me to come here and introduce myself. Does anyone have any questions?
This isn't a question and answer
Okay.
period, but we thank you very much for your remarks.
Okay.
And we appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else care to be heard tonight? Mr. Cohen?
Hi. You know why I'm here. It's time for your monthly scolding. Let me remind you of the atrocity that you were pointing upon the neighbors with this development. I figured the least you can do is listen to me for 3 minutes a month. For punishment for what you've done. This construction has been a nightmare. You all are enjoying your summer. It's been great weather. We suffer nonstop all day long. Backup alarms, and dust, and noise, and traffic that doesn't know where it's going. You don't have to put up with it, because you don't live anywhere near it. And next month, you're going to, of course, decide on what they're going to be allowed to do with parcel 2. So that'll be another year before they get started on that. So maybe next summer we can go through this as well. It's shameful what you've done. It's absolutely shameful. How many of you have gone by, driven down Dudley, and seen just how out of place those buildings are? I look out my front window And I'm staring at a building that's not even going to be the closest one to Dunwoody Road. This huge building on what formerly used to be green space. And yet, I hold the school board just as accountable. It is shameful. You ought to be ashamed of what you've done. Drive down, spend a day with me in that house. I heard the blast music just to keep myself from going crazy with the noise. Weekends as well. Shameful.
Would anyone else wish to be heard on an item on or off the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda item 3, committee reports. We'll be reporting on the joint building board and planning commission meeting that took place last week. Mr. Funstad and I attended. Mr. Funstad, you and I'll take the first one.
Okay.
And maybe you can take the second one?
Sure.
The item states the village board will receive a report concerning the plan commission review of the proposed land division at 6921 North Yates Road. This is a property owner on North Yates Road who wishes to divide the property and create what arguably could be considered a back lot. A back lot is, there's a specific ordinance that addresses back lots. Mr. Fonstad researched it and pointed out that it dates back to 1961. It's disfavored in the village of Fox Point for reasons, we're not sure what the reasons were in 1961, but we speculate that part of it was public safety and access, and part of it was we don't want to create, or the village board then did not want to create a residential community that had back lots. Now, there are back lots in the village that were grandfathered in that date back many years, but not that many. So the property owner came forward on an application for a back lot, and we reviewed the statute very carefully, and the statute has very rigid requirements for the board to consider and measure in determining whether we would approve a back lot. The test is this. This is Code Section 738-7C2. No division shall be permitted which results in the creation of a back lot or lots not having a reasonable amount of direct frontage on a public street or way unless, okay, here it comes, unless, in the opinion of the village board, the particular circumstances are such as to justify the practical necessity of the division, and no appreciable detrimental effect to surrounding property values will result in the division. The Plan Commission agreed that that was a tough standard, and in this case, when the property owner came forward, the property owner, in the view of the Plan Commission, did not make the case to meet these standards. In fairness to the property owner, so the Plan Commission moved the matter forward with a negative recommendation to the village board. The Plan Commission felt, however, that the property owner might be given more time to develop his case because there was only 8 days between the Plan Commission meeting and tonight's meeting. So we put it off, hearing it tonight. We'll probably hear it in August to give the property owner that opportunity. For instance, the property owner had not talked to his neighbors about how they felt about this property division. There was also some question about exactly how much frontage to the road, in this case Foxdale, the back lot would actually enjoy as far as access or driveway. Those were two considerations. There were others too, including this language about practical necessity. And appreciable detrimental effect to surrounding property values. To meet those standards, a great deal of work probably would have to occur and be brought forward. So that's where we are. We expect that the property owner, well, when this comes before the village board in August or possibly September, we think that the property owner will try to make this case, but right now it was the feeling of the planning commission that he had not succeeded. That concludes my report.
Are there questions?
Yeah.
When you were describing that standard, is that an ordinance? I'm sorry, this is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, great. That's all I have, thank you.
Any other questions?
Is that the new house on Yates? Whereabouts?
I'm not sure.
It's the house south of the newly constructed house on Yates.
I don't think it's a new house.
No, it's not, yeah, it's not. It's the one just to the south of the brand new construction house. You look across the street, right? Yeah.
The property owner had been in the house about a year and a half. And there was, I believe, approximately the quote-unquote back lot. I say that in quotes because I don't mean to prejudge the case, but the parcel in question had about 24 feet of access, not off the 8th, but off of Foxdale.
It was recently sold, that property, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Actually, this, they asked the owner of this, they bought the property earlier this year. It actually had been sold last year also.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And one of the findings that the Plan Commission made was that it was the back lot, but there is the standard, which is actually for the board to decide, which is what President Frazier described. Now, as far as the portion of the Plan Commission meeting that dealt with the Azura Memory Care Facility on West, in the former Dunwood School property, we received a presentation from the applicant, Mr. Matthew Lyons, is representing Missouri. Before that, Ian Martin from Mandel, who was presented before this board in the past, wanted the Plan Commission to know that the Azura proposal meets the requirements of the development agreement, that they actually, building height is lower than the limit is 35 feet, and their building is 31 feet. Almost all the parking is underground. There are a few lots or spots for visitors, and Mr. Martin reported that Azura has been working very well with Mandel, let's see, the other thing that's Mr. Lyons presented information on the demand for memory care units now in the North Shore and projections. He presented traffic study information and information that was developed as far as the frequency of to be anticipated of ambulance visits. We reviewed the layout, which is designed to minimize any light, like headlights going north from the residential area. The buildings are laid out so that those headlights will be blocked. Also, any noise would also be, the buildings are positioned for that. There was a fairly extensive presentation, after which the Plan Commission made a determination that the core standards in the statute for recommending approval of the application have been met. Those standards are that the development is appropriate in the location proposed, compatible with the neighborhood, not detrimental to property values of surrounding properties, and in keeping with the residential character and quality of the village. On that, the plan commission made recommended to the board that the application be approved.
Questions on Mr. Fonstad's report? Very good. The Azura application will come before the board, I believe, in August, in the next meeting. Azura needed a little more time to make sure everything was in order before it came back to the board. Very good. We move to item 4, public hearing, the proposed 2019 Community Development Block Grant CDBG Program Project List public input. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Mr. Tarato. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The public hearing is open. Do any members of the public wish to speak on the matter of the 2019 Community Development Block Grant? This item is recurring in that it comes up every year. I'll let the manager explain.
It's recurring, it comes up every year. Sorry. We do a CDBG grant. It's in the amount of generally $5,000, and we are eligible for exactly one thing, and it's for seniors. We use it for our LX Club, our joint support with Lake Michigan LX Club. Beyond that, we are not eligible for any other CDBG grant proceeds for anything that we do. What we do is on an annual basis. That is it.
Any questions? Discussion? Very good. I don't need to close the public hearing. Oh, I do. Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is closed on item 4A. We move to 4B. The proposed Azura LLC development at 2017 West Dunwood Road. I entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Mr. President, I would
Recommend
that we do not open this.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Sorry, we're skipping over this because, as I mentioned, this is going to come before us in August.
Do we need to set it for August, right?
Yeah, you can set the date. It's suggested to bring it back at the regular meeting of August 14th.
Mr. Fonstad.
Yeah, I move we set the time and date for the public hearing on this matter for August 14th at the regular village board meeting, and immediately after the person's desire.
I second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. The public hearings will be scheduled for the August 2018. We move to agenda item 5, the consent agenda. Do any members of the board wish to take an item off the consent agenda without debate? I wish to take item A off. Any other items? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So,
Thank you, Mr. Alderman. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cover. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Approving this consent agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved, absent item 5A. Item 5A, I've removed item 5A. We're at 6 new business, and the first new business is item 5A, the consent agenda, because I believe, according to the clerk treasurer, we have a corrected set of minutes from the last meeting. And I believe the trustees all have the corrected set of minutes in front of them.
That's correct.
So I would move to approve the corrected set of minutes.
second.
Mr. Fonstad seconds. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Chairman.
What's been corrected?
Uh, I'll let the clerk treasurer speak to that.
There were some notes in the minutes that were, it was incomplete, so I cleaned it up. It was some housekeeping on the minutes and regular editing of items.
Any other discussion, Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, and just to give you a little more specific, I know that there was one place where initial were used rather than full names, and there was a sort of a missing words. And then my favorite one was that it said, the original draft said that chickens can attack raccoons, coyotes, and chickens can attract. Anyway, it was just very minor things.
Right, not non-substantive corrections. Nothing further? All right, so no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the corrected minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The corrected minutes are approved. We move to 6A, new business. Well, that was new business too. The second item of new business, resolution awarding the sale of $1,405,000 general obligation promissory notes, Series 2018. Mr. Manager.
Alrighty, we had our bond sale this morning, and for me, this is kind of old school night, because Brad is up north somewhere, and we are, we are blessed with the appearance of John Meehan, who's like the big boss. And I made John Meehan what he is by making him successful in Delafield. The only guy who ever called me said, "You're not spending enough money." Right? Tip number 2 at 8394, I gave Illinois School District a $7 million check. Free money, right? That was Randy Moss's number. Free money. Yeah. Anyway, John, if you want to go into it, but I think our bond sale was fairly successful. I sent you all the 10-year rate list this morning. And John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Mr. Meehan, could you state your name and spell your name for the record? Tell us who you are, and the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. Good evening, my name is John Meehan, M-E-H-A-N. The Irish spelled with 2 E's, but I only spelled with 1 E. I'm with Robert W. Barrett Company, I'm the managing director of Barrett, and believe it or not, I worked with the village of Fox Point years ago, and the boy with one more story. When I moved here from St. Louis in 1987, I actually applied to be the village manager of Fox Point, but was turned down.
Come on.
So what I've done is I ended up at Barrett, that's all I ended up at. True story. That part Dangle interviewed me and I didn't get the job. So thanks again for the opportunity to try again before you. Based on the action of the board, we conducted a bid opening this morning, electronic bid opening at 10 a.m. And in advance of that, we obtained a bond rating, we posted it through the bond buyer, which is the administrative newspaper, and distributed the preliminary official statement of offering documents, including the bid specifications. The brief panel I'll walk through as a result of the sale. We received 4 bidders this morning, and frankly, for $1.4 million issue size, that's a lot of bidders. You might say, well, gee, why aren't more people involved? It's all about what the bidders can make on what they're bidding on. $14 million issue or $1.4 million issue. So getting 4 bidders to show up is a good thing, and it reflects the quality of the bond. It's structured 10 years, but also the bond, so that's key. The winning bidder, which is Doherty & Company, is actually a Minneapolis firm. The other firms, Minardi Securities, which is out of Chicago, Northland Securities, which is out of Minneapolis, and BOK, which is actually Bank of Oklahoma Securities, but they have a local presence. So we did get 4 quality bidders. The winner, true interest cost, which takes into account their earnings as well as the interest rates, is 2.56%. On page 3, just the details. The day-to-day settlement is July 30th. That means that's when the funds will arrive at the village and the interest rate clock will start. The maturities of bonds are April 1, 2019 through 28. So it's a 10-year amortization, and it matches your existing debt payments of principal and interest. There's a call provision at your option for the years 26, 27, and 28 maturities. It can be called April 1 of 2025. And any day thereafter, I'll be amazed if you call. The rates are so low. but that provision is your option. The rating is a AA1, excellent rating, and as I mentioned, George is 2.56. On page 4, we show the overall financing plan of the village. On the left side, we show the existing debt, levy supported. This issue, which is really broken up to 3 different purposes, and on the right side, what is the levy supported debt service as after the sale takes place. So this just breaks down the issue into 3 different purposes, but it shows what the overall effect is levy debt service. At the very back, I've got a copy of the Moody's credit report itself. I would say no surprises. Your AA rating, I think, is very appropriate. I think it reflects your financial strength, community demographics, and also reflects that any change in the rating is really something that you would have to do. In other words, if it goes down, it would be because of the management of the funds going forward, your fund balance and things like that. So, it's been said, you are who they say you are, you're AA1, great. At this point, I'll stop and mention that the material which I have just covered has been put in the resolution, which is in your packet, which is prepared by your bond counsel. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Does any member of the public wish to address the board on this agenda item? Members of the board, any questions?
I would like to call attention to one thing, and that is just on page 4. I just want to make sure you're aware of this. We worked really hard, John, when I came here, we had some spikes in our debt service, and we worked really hard to engage in smoothing, for lack of a better term. And I always think it's important to show the existing debt service with the new issue included. You can see that we're pretty much flat at 1.533, 1.536, and then it starts slowly creeping down. So we've taken that spike out of there, and we've been able to maintain that static debt service requirement moving forward. Because when we started here, it was a little bit spiky as we launched it. So this has continued to work fairly well. We'll continue to drive fund balance. I think that, and Mike knows that I'm only slightly competitive on this stuff, but our fund balances, according to Moody's, they actually had discussions at committee as to whether or not we should be a AAA at some point. And our size works against us, the lack of commercial base works against us, but our fund balances are such that they said you guys are at that point. And so, as we had discussions with Moody's, they were actually very cordial discussion. I mean, it was informational. We have some things moving forward at the end of the year. We have funds in other accounts, and Wendy will be here next month, and we'll talk about that, Wendy Under. That may allow us to reflect some other funds that we can put in general fund to show a little bit of a higher fund balance, because at the end of the day, money is fungible, right? Money is fungible, so we can do some things with that, and hopefully enhancing, because the difference today between this and a AAA is about 10 basis points today. It would have been 2.45-ish if it was a AAA roughly, depending on bidders and everything else. And as I said in my memo to you today, I'm glad the sale works. I think the market's a little unsettled. I'm not sure if people know if they want to put money in the muni bonds, if the equities have topped off, the Fed's changing rates, what do people want to do? So I'm actually very pleased with this, and this is one we'll just, sometimes you can play a bad ball game, you say start the bus, let's get out of here. We'll start the bus and we'll take this and be happy with it. So. Mr. Kravitz?
Just out of curiosity, why in the year 2021, on $1 million column, the principal is 0? Just simply stick out a little bit.
We have moved that up, and we have a balloon payment due for dispatch that year. And so we've accelerated that. We've done that in years past, the last couple of years. So we save on interest expense, and we smoothed out that 2021 payment. And all the communities in dispatch will lump sum in that year. So that's what we've done. There's other communities in the North Shore that show a big spike that year in the debt service departments because they haven't done it. Once, and Brad and I and Mike have talked about this, We're probably to the point that next year, we just probably won't do that. We'll look at a little different amortization schedule, because I think our school league is pretty much locked in, getting us to 2021 pass. But that's a discussion we can have next year when we review market conditions at that point.
Other questions? Thank you. So, John, Mr. Manager, for your work on this, I know that you both paid a great deal of attention to the details of our bond funding efforts. Mr. Foster.
Yeah, I move that we adopt the resolution awarding the sale of $1,405,000 general obligation promissory notes series 2018 as set forth in the resolution that was in front of us this evening.
I second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. We move to 6B, the review of the 2019-2023 capital plan. And the manager will present this item.
This is, we do this on an annual basis, and I said in my memo, it's a plan, it's not a budget, it's not a commitment, nor is it a financing proposal. But it is laid out to just kind of give structure to the thoughts and issues that we face as a community moving forward. So I'd just like to walk through some of the highlights of this. Obviously, once we get to budgeting season, we'll drill down a little bit more. And as you know from previous years, some of these things will appear in the budget proposal and some frankly will not. And that's just how life is. And so I'm going to walk through, and I'm not going to go through some of the usual stuff, but I want to point out the big stuff in this. And again, it's just a plan for you to consider as you move into the fall. And I'm on page 41 right now. I'm going to turn to page 41. It should be the first page of the DPW spreadsheet. And as you know, we have taken now the last couple of years and tried to reinvest in our infrastructure. We have some infrastructure we did. Remember my show and tell with the water main, we had the piece we took out and the piece we hadn't done with. And that's what we face in many places throughout the village with some of the aged infrastructure that we have. In 2019, DPW is proposing street reconstruction, water main, and sanitary improvements, primarily in the Calumet and Barnett areas of our community. And we do our PASER analysis, and Scott will be back probably in August or September to present the PASER analysis, because that's generally when he does that ahead of the budget. And the PASER analysis, if you remember, is the quantitative evaluation of our streets. It's numeric from 0 to 10. Unlike golf, low is bad, high is good. So if you get a 0, that's like driving on the moon. 10 is like a brand new street. So these are the two streets that are very, very low in our PASER analysis. And so you see in 2019, we have some significant expenditures on Calumet and Barnett for water mains, because if you're going to do street reconstruction, you're going to do water main reconstruction, you're going to do storm and some sewer issues if you need to. We have some basin, sewer, and manhole repair in basin 3 and 4, which is in that area. And if you remember our discussions with Mandel in the MMSD 2050 capital plan, which we actually referenced last time, basins 3 and 4 are the two basins that they have concern about in terms of how much capacity we have there. In the 2035 plan, we don't. In the 2050 plan, we do, but that doesn't eliminate the need for us to have to deal with some I&I problems that we have going on in those two basins. So that's part of the deal. There will be some grading and drainage improvement done as well. Most of the time, that's culvert replacement. We have culverts that we pulled out. If you go behind the building, we have stacks of rusted culverts that we pulled out this year, where they're just rusted straight through. So if we do that, they're actually fairly affordable to drop in. The significant cost of that is simply the cost of metal, what the commodity price for that rolled steel is. So that's, otherwise we do the same thing. We have the diseased elm, the forestry stuff is in there. We have that 8-year plan that is continuing on. We're getting near the end of that, but we're not quite out the door with that one yet. I think we're 2 years to go, Eric, is that right? Two? I think it's 2. I think it's 2 years to go. And, you know, we do have the Indian Creek Woods, which you have mentioned before. That'll be a significant issue next year, and it's full of ash trees, and there's a lot of sick ones in there, so just that'll be a significant matter. I'll move into 2020. They're going to look at redoing the major proposal at that point in 2020 will be Regent and Bradley. Again, the same kind of work, storm drainage, water and sewer as needed. One of the things in the equipment list for 2020, and I think there's a Packer in 2019, is the rubbish scooter issue. And one of the discussions we will be having is, you know, we signed a 5-year contract with our last garbage contract. And remember, we renegotiated the recycling part of it, so we actually saved $35,000 a year. But I think at that point, you know, it's very possible we'll have a discussion as to whether or not you really want to buy a garbage packer and or the scooters, if there's a possibility you'll be doing garbage in a different way just 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. Now, some of these scooters, you're going to have to replace them because they just may not last that long. But a garbage packer is, you know, it's 6 figures. And, you know, it's something, if you think you're going to do something else, you may want to push that one back a little bit. We'll make that decision when we get there, but that's just a possibility that I see. The other issues we have in there are, again, 2020, we have removal of diseased elms. We have managed the ash tree with treatments, planting removals. You know, we have a dry well at the end of Santa Monica that's proposed, again, to create for us a basin that will serve in times of heavy rain and then rain itself. It will not have water in it all the time. It will be a dry basin.
That is North Santa Monica?
Yes. Yeah. And
Where's that garbage packer?
I think it's 2019, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Is it 19?
Is it 19?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
2019, about halfway on the middle page. So the garbage packer is about 165, which is, we actually, a couple of years ago, bought one. It ended up being less than that because we got a good bid, but about 150 is about what they cost.
It looks like in 2020 it would be replacing the water utility system.
It's proposed.
Right.
Yeah, it's proposed. You know, if you had to ask me if I right now would put it in, I would say no, but, you know, it's a couple years down the road, and we'll deal with that when we get to budget season. But the one we have now is pretty old.
Yeah, it's old, but it has very few miles on it. It doesn't,
It doesn't drive far.
it doesn't, no, this is the water utility vehicle.
Oh, the van, okay.
Yeah, it's a big truck. It's got something like 8,000 miles on it after 20 or 25 years. But, so that's not the issue. The issue is other parts of the vehicle don't last forever, even if the vehicle is slightly burdened. It sits more than it rides, obviously.
You get body rustling and stuff, and the frame starts going bad, and you know, it's like anything else. In 2021, I'm now on page 43. We have grading, drainage, and pipe improvements along Blackhawk, KG, Acacia, and Coleman proposed. And there is a thing in there, and this is a discussion we'll have maybe this year, I haven't really decided yet. As we look at this building, and I mentioned to Elizabeth, someday I'm going to take her down there, and the guys out there, when they park their stuff, and Greg and I talk about it, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together down there. I mean, the garage bays below us here, there's really no room for air. They're pretty full. And it's not like we have equipment that we don't use. Everything down there we use. At some point, we may talk about adding an additional bay of depth. And as part of that, Bill and Scott have proposed perhaps paving the DPWR yard, adding some storage and some cold storage, which would be down this way. South. Sorry, down by the brush pile and all this stuff is stored. So that'd be 2021. They talk about in 2021 from the water replacing the loops on Beach Drive. Those are estimated to be 60 to 85 years old according to our water folks, which surprised me a little bit, I said. And the condition of some of those is not great. And you go to 2022, a lot of the same stuff. We are including, so if you want to go one more year out to 2023, but in 2022 they are starting to design for Santa Monica improvements because the surface of Santa Monica will start needing some attention. So roughly that's an overview of the public works. Otherwise we have the usual stuff. We have upgrades to databases for GIS. A lot of the grading and drainage stuff that we normally do. If you turn to police really fast, which is on page 47 in your packet. Next year is a replace one vehicle year. So we have the one year we have two, and then we have some where we have one. Next year is a one police vehicle year. Chris has put in 37,920. That's about what they cost once we get the radios and all the stuff in and get the detailing done. It is time to replace the laptops. They'll be 7 years old, which for the vehicle will be is fairly aged. In 2020, it'll be time to replace the firearms. It will be 10 years old, and that's a liability nobody wants to have. So that's something that we'll probably get rid of. It's another 1 year for one police vehicle replacement year. And in 2021, you see on the second to the bottom line in 2021, there's that $160,000 balloon payment. That's part of the dispatch thing, and that's kind of a smoothing we've engaged in. That's not negotiable. That will be in the budget. It has to be. But that's part of what we have included, and we frankly we've had discussions with BASAT about paying that off early, since we have the cash, and I would like to negotiate a discount. We don't want to pay full money now. They haven't really been interested in doing that. Susan's laughing. They really haven't. But for us, if we could pay them a discounted future level, I'd do it. But they don't think anything interest in doing that. And beyond that, we have in 2022, it'll be a 2 vehicle replacement time, so see vehicles will be 77 instead of 38. And the mobile video recorder. Now, the one thing that's not included in here, and we really haven't addressed it, the Police and Fire Commission, to my knowledge, hasn't addressed it, is the whole issue of body cams. And, there's a couple schools of thoughts on that, but the one thing I always am cautious about is that if you use body cams, it is a public record, and so then you need to have a place to store them. And so you have 24 hours of digital storage for multiple police officers, 7 days a week, and you have to store it somewhere. And that storage has a cost. And so, you have to ask yourself, in a village like Fox Point, is it worth to have it? You can argue both ways. But there is that is the primary cost for body cams. And people want to give them to communities, and that's all cool. The camera part itself is nothing. It's the storage part that just goes through the camera. So,
How long are you guys told? Years?
it's
I'm not aware of an exception. The general rule is 7 years.
that's what I'm saying.
We could look to see whether we can get the state to reduce that for us.
So that is a ton of storage. And then on the clerk treasurer side, which we did not include yet, we have for 2019, we will be replacing we're going to electronic poll books, which I know Kelly has talked about in the past, and that expense will be about $12,000. And what it'll do is if you want to take 2 seconds and explain the poll No, the boss.
Sure, I would be happy to. The electronic poll books actually will help the village on the front end and the back end of elections. It's gonna all be electronic and it will integrate with the Wistful system. So it would include eventually, I'm not sure if they've done this yet, but voter registration forms would be done on that. It would automatically go into Wistful and the voter would be registered immediately. And also with the poll book, the votes would go in, they would immediately be recorded with your voter number. It wouldn't be how it is now, all paper. And on the back end, we're recording votes with Wistful after the election, which can take us weeks to do, depending on the size of the election. So the votes would be recorded immediately, saving on our time, the village's time, the election inspector's time, and making us much more efficient.
And the salaries that go along with paying the election workers.
Yes.
Now, the last thing we have in the packet, there is a proposed capital budget from the North Shore Library. And was that blessed today? Did you guys
No,
read today?
they're looking at it tomorrow, and then
Okay.
the full board will vote on the 19th.
Okay, that's what it was. But Susan has been kind enough and you know, I'm just, because I'm in public and I'm on TV, you've done a bang up job with the library. So thank you very much for Eric as well, and Christine is not here, but, you know, it's a very difficult job. You brought them a long way. So keep it up. But I did ask her to include a capital budget from the library for your review now, again, as we move into budget season, because the library is contemplating some significant capital expense. And most of the, maybe, you know, Eric, if you want to, I can walk through it, but the biggest component that I've had discussions with Susan and with members of the library board with in the past has been the remodel expenses, and primarily for 2019, what I kind of call the soft costs. I mean, some of the ancillary costs that are up front. So you've got schematic design, design development, and construction documents. And if you can just imagine doing the building, it's not dissimilar from the pool. Your schematic is more conceptual than design development, which is a little more focused, and then you actually go to the construction documents and then the bidding component. And so the library is contemplating that being in 2019. Carpeting, computers, RFID implementation, which I think is a really cool thing, and frankly only puts us, I mean, this has been out there for a while. Other libraries have had that for a while. And then signage out front is one of the issues we face with the libraries. Quite frankly, no one knows they're there. It kind of doesn't look like a library, and people kind of zip past it. And so we include enhancing the curb appeal of the library, I think, might help us. As the library goes through their capital planning process, the library board will make the decisions, and folks like Eric and people in other communities will review these proposals and make the decisions as to whether or not they're good expenditures or whether or not this is the amount. But as you go through the budget, you can see the Fox Point amount on this one, and we're at 26% of the capital budget, which is our share of the funding of the library. And so the numbers you see in total, you have to go down below and see the Fox Point amount, which is $100,000 in 2019. 2020 is where you actually get the construction expenses. And for us, our potential cost is just slightly in excess of $1 million. And that's $1 million paper dollars right now. We haven't bid it, we haven't sharpened the pencils, we haven't done any of that. But that's coming down the road.
Yeah, that's a good summary, and I'll defer to Susan on some of the stuff, but just the big unknown that's not reflected here is that there is a significant fundraising effort that's contemplated, and how much that will contribute to the overall cost and thereby reduce the amount really would be expected to contribute and yet to be defined. I've seen preliminary designs, and we're not ready, I guess, to share them, but I think people will be amazed at the transformation and how, given the space constraints we have and location, the curb appeal in particular, the consultants who are working with the architects have come up with some very impressive ways to define that entrance and really transform the building. So I think that's exciting. I think that bodes well for the fundraising effort. And I guess I want to hear if Susan has anything further she'd like to add. Anything come up? Yeah.
Come on up. We invite up the library director, Ms. Susan Drager Anderson. Please state your name for the record.
Susan Drager Anderson, that's D as in dog, R-A-E-G-E-R, hyphen Anderson with no name. So, Scott asked me to come up with some definitions of the various phases, and I thought that was such a good recommendation. So I contacted the architect, and they put together some descriptions of the work that will be done in this year of architectural work, and the time, and I actually put the dollar amount, the estimated dollar amount from that budget. I'll leave a couple here for the future. And we have an architect on our library board now, and he is, so I reached out to him. Scott, recommended, Scott is always the budgeteer. So he, recommended reaching out to see, or to try to figure out if these numbers are what they should be. Librarians aren't really taught negotiation in library school, but it is something that I'm working on. And so I reached out to the architect who is on our board, and I've had a discussion with him, and he's made some really good recommendations to me to reach back out again to our current architect and actually kind of nail down hours that they will be working on the project so that we can then back that in and make sure that the costs are appropriate. So I'm really pleased that the architect is a member from Glendale, and he's proven to be very handy right now with his recommendations. He's trying also to stay very neutral. It's kind of a tough spot for him, but he has made some recommendations I think will help. So we are really excited. The final program, we'll receive the final program on July 19th. So we'll be happy to share that with you after that. We're really excited about especially the entryway. We found a way to kind of cover it and add a lot of lighting, and it's going to be really neat. And to make our workspace more efficient. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Does any member of the public wish to speak on this item, the capital budget, the proposed or the possible capital budget? No? Yeah, question?
Question for the manager. It seems that every year the big variable is which street associated utilities are going to be rebuilt. You pointed out earlier that you worked to kind of level the debt structure. And I just wondered if when you're projecting out, if you kind of size those big dollar projects so they're kind of level going forward too, what happens?
Well, we do, and sometimes it's more an art than a science, because we do pay attention to the markets and see what's going on. We do pay attention, for example, to construction costs, because Foxconn has changed the playing field in terms of some of the construction costs. Now, it hasn't really impacted us yet, but it has impacted some of our friends and neighbors, and so we're watching that. In theory, and I kind of joke with Mike about this, is that, we sell that for 1.26, which is what we did 2 years ago, and even like 1.96 last year. Those are numbers that, frankly, if you look, John's left, but nobody else touched. I mean, it was just amazing back-to-back years. If we had known that, it'd have been nice to sell like $20 million worth of it and lock it in. Now, the problem is that then you have all that debt service and you get paid and whatever else. And frankly, we don't have the wherewithal to manage $20 million worth of projects. And you have arbitrage rules, you have to spend it so much by 9 months, so much by 18 months, so much by 36 months, and there's no way in God's green earth we could ever do that. So that's part of it. The other part of it is we really do we try to stay close to the Pazer analysis because we're somewhat going on the assumption, and this is partially true and sometimes less true, that the condition of our water lines that are the same age will be relatively equal, and the variability in the degradation of the water lines is less than that of the streets, which are exposed to traffic and snow and everything else. The water lines are in the soil, and they generally degenerate at similar rates. Not always, but it's because we, as you know, we have some parts of the village we have a lot of water main breaks, and so we try to accelerate those. But so we stay close to the Pazer analysis and try to pick off projects that we feel we can manage. Because if we can't manage them effectively, then it's just going to be a train wreck. Now, the downside of that, as John mentioned today, is that we end up kind of sort of in the $1.5 million issue range. That's a nice bite size. You saw the people tonight who did it were largely mid-market types, and that's totally fine. But he's right, if we had bigger issues, we'd attract people who had more money to park. That's just the world. It'll be a balance again as to how do we apply cash, because I think we need to apply cash because it's a tool and manage it against debt. We have had historically low interest rates, 2.5%. You guys are old as old as I am. There's lots of years you take 2.5% and say, holy smokes, that's really good. But the Fed's doing what it's doing and the market is unsettled. So all those things will go into the calculation that we go into. And Scott has his part of it. I have my part of it. Mike sometimes plays referee. And that's how we get to where we get to.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Corrado?
One of the items I noticed was on sewer. Every year there's the lateral rehab and the sewer manhole rehab of basin number 4 and the basin number 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's like $250,000 for each one. Is that just different areas?
In the basins, yeah.
Right,
Basins, if you remember the map about a year ago on the Mandel project, they had the basins identified. And part of those proceeds are reimbursable through MMSD. So we make the capital expenditure, then we come back and we collect a big portion of that from the MMSD grants, which is not a revenue thing, this is just those expenditures. So that's part of that equation. But the basins that we have that have the capacity are 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we address those.
Okay. And it's just a continuous, every year there's a...
Yeah, it's again, that's something that if we took on the whole basin at one time, we just couldn't manage it.
Right, yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Other questions? Before we leave this item, I'd like to say that my article for the Fox Point Review for September 2018 is going to focus on what lies behind the walls of Village Hall. That is, what goes on to our east behind these walls, which is largely a lot of what we discussed in the capital budget, the Department of Public Works operations, which goes largely unseen. So we'll pull back the curtain, if you will, for purposes of that article. So stay tuned. All right, thank you, Mr. Manager, for a very comprehensive report. Thanks, Ms. Fraser Anderson, for coming and adding your report on the library progress. We move to item 6C, dark store report and lobby request from President Fraser. This is my item. I'm tasked to give a synopsis on the growing concern over the dark store loophole and possible action on approval of expenditures of $1,200 in concert with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities and other member municipalities. This is an important issue for municipalities like Fox Point that have big box stores. Fox Point is a relatively small municipality, but we have 3 big box stores. Other municipalities around the state, including many in Milwaukee County, also have big box stores. What we are experiencing is a series of lawsuits that threaten to shift the property tax away from big box stores, that is, reduce the big box stores' property tax and shift them to residential home owners. So we're not talking here about a tax hike directly, we're just talking about a shift. The pie stays the same, but the big box stores would be paying less of the pie, and who has to pick it up but the residential property owners? And this swing is dramatic. We've seen it, we haven't seen it yet in Fox Point. We are expecting it and we need to prepare for it, but in other communities it's dramatic. It could result in your average property owner's property taxes increasing anywhere from $200 to $900 a year, depending on the community, depending on all the variables that go into the tax base and the mill rate and that calculation. So how did this situation come about? It came about from a Wisconsin Supreme Court case in 2008 called Walgreens versus the City of Madison. The question before the court was which model of real property tax valuation is most appropriate for essentially big box stores. The case was obviously brought by Walgreens. And there were 2 models that were considered. One is a fee simple model of valuation. I'm simplifying this. A fee simple value model of valuation where the assessor focuses primarily just on what the land and the building are worth. The assessor will take into account the leasehold interest, that is the value of the lease, and other factors, but the primary focus is just the fee simple value. The second model is called the lease fee value, where the primary focus is on the lease. And it's not necessarily the market value of the lease, but it may often be, in the case of big box stores, the contract value of the lease. And the reason is this: a lot of big box stores, including Walgreens and CVS and others, have a business plan that is relatively new. That is, it's relatively new to the existing statute. And the business plan is that they tell the developer to build out this property, to acquire land and build out this property to very strict specifications. And the arrangement is really more or less like a triple net lease arrangement. So the landlord is really just collecting rent and paying taxes, but everything else is worked into it as far as expenses. So the lease value is treated as above market because the amortization of this business plan is different since there's so much upfront cost according to the tenant, Walgreens, CVS specifications. Walgreens objected to this model, and it went before the Wisconsin Supreme Court in this case in 2008. It was a unanimous decision. There were no dissents. There was a good concurrence by Shirley Abrahamson that I thought focused the issue particularly well. But what the court did, in my view, was an exercise in judicial restraint, actually. The court unanimously said, well, the statute says on its face, and the assessor's manual, which is a creature of the statute, says on its face that the fee simple model is the one the assessor should use. Shirley Abrahamson said went out of her way to say she didn't think that was the best or the most appropriate model. She thought that the lease fee value model was a much better model for the real world in which these big box stores were being created. But nevertheless, they said that's what the manual says, that's what the statute says, and it's not up to us to change it. They're both valid models, there's pros and cons to each of them. The fee-based model is appropriate. So Walgreens won that case, and for the last 10 years, we've seen over 100 lawsuits whereby big box stores are challenging the municipality's assessments based on their interpretation of the Walgreens case. Now, the goal of this litigation isn't necessarily to prevail. The goal of this litigation, in my view, is to settle. But they've interpreted this case to suggest that the appropriate model of evaluation is actually to disregard the leasehold interest altogether and to value properties as a dark store. That gives rise to this dark store theory and the dark store legislation that's attempting to correct it. That is, let's pretend like this was an unoccupied and vacant building. And court and assessor, you were compelled by the Walgreens case to value it in that way. The courts will not dismiss this argument as frivolous, and it's not frivolous under the Walgreens decision. And some of the box stores win these cases. Very often, or most often, this litigation works a severe reduction in their property taxes. Municipalities feel like they need to settle these cases. The litigation hazards are just too high in order to require to go to an appellate court. So, that's the property tax shift that municipalities all over the state are concerned about and are fighting against. I attend a meeting every month for the Intergovernmental Cooperation Council. This is the chief elected officials of all the municipalities in Milwaukee County, Pleasant County Executive. Everybody is united in its support of corrective legislation and opposed to the dark store theory. It's not a partisan issue. This corrective legislation, in fact, enjoys bipartisan support, overwhelming bipartisan support. Michigan and Indiana have had similar problems. I guess their statutes read in a similar way, and their legislatures are trying to advance corrective legislation too. Any individual who watches this in Madison will tell us that if brought to a vote, this legislation would pass overwhelmingly in a bipartisan fashion. The governor has stated as recently as yesterday that he supports it. So why hasn't this happened? The leadership won't bring it to the floor for a vote. Why? Well, in my opinion, the leadership is beholden to the Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, WMC, who supports the big box stores in opposing this corrective legislation, and they are addressing the problem by ignoring it, and they have the power to do that. That is, at least right now. That is, they refuse to bring it to the floor for a vote. We're all over this, and that is, we, meaning the League of Municipalities and municipalities in Milwaukee County, are all over this, and we need to have our voices heard, and heard better and heard louder. The League of Municipalities has asked affected municipalities to contribute to this essentially lobbying fund, and has asked affected municipalities to contribute a benchmark or a minimum of $1,200 toward this effort. That's why the item is on the agenda. I felt like the board should consider and debate it. I tried to explain as best I could what this corrective legislation was attempting to do. It actually has two parts. Part one says that assessors should consider the leasehold value in assessments. And number two is that assessors should consider the comparable market segment when coming to an assessed value of stores like this. Both very common sense in the world of assessments. This is a situation, I think, where the law just has to be updated and corrected to catch up with current market realities and evolving business plans for business development. There's nothing wrong with the business plan that these big box stores have come up with. The question is, are they paying their fair share of taxes? Are they paying less than their fair share? And what's the burden on everybody else if action isn't taken? Questions?
A couple of questions. This is a request to fund lobbying. Since I met him before, I don't recall us being involved in a situation where we asked to fund lobbying. It may be, the League of Wisconsin Municipality does lobbying, and I assume we are members, and I assume we pay a membership fee, and that's how they support their lobbying efforts generally. And this is kind of so that we indirectly do lobbying, not specific lobbying. What's different about this, as I understand it, is that this is like a special assessment for a special project. I think you laid out why it's in our interest to support it, and I don't have a problem that way. It's just unusual for us to be asked to fund the lobbying effort beyond what we do by being active members in these organizations.
I agree. I think that this request is extraordinary. You've been on the board longer than I have, but I think that we have not had an appeal like this. But it's to the point where the league and the ICC feel like we need a stronger voice on this issue because we're not being heard sufficiently. If something like this enjoys the support it does and is being held back from an up-down vote, then there's a problem, and maybe the best way or a better way to try to address the problem is to bring more attention to the issue.
Yeah, I don't know. The money is not, in my mind, the issue is more the sort of the precedent of doing this. Number one, we do it for this issue, what other issues are going to come up in the future that might feel, pressure to fund. And it seems like you've indicated that there are a couple individuals, elected officials, who are blocking this, and sort of the will of the majority is being blocked. So, why wouldn't we campaign against them? It's kind of like, which I don't think we can, we can or should do as a government entity, but it's just as I say, I don't have a problem with the money, it's just an unusual request.
It is. It's probably obvious, but the proponents of the dark store theory have a lot of money in which to advance their interests and their lawsuits and their legal positions. The league, who is spearheading this effort, has much less resources. That's part of the imbalance we're trying to correct. Mr. Craddock?
Well, just at Eric's point, I don't really see this as a lobbying because we all agree that it seems we need to take a premeditated approach before we see our tax base shift more to the homeowners. And I think everyone would agree. So we're not trying to change somebody's mind or cross the line against somebody's political belief. We're trying, as I see, we're trying to stay ahead of this movement that is going to shift taxpayer liability to homeowners, and
That's fair. Mr. Toronto?
I don't see it as being political at all. And when you say lobbying, that kind of triggers political.
Well, it's certainly not partisan. It's a narrow legal issue. And of course, as a board, we have a duty to commercial property holders as well as residential property holders. So we have to weigh both sides of the question. I've studied this very thoroughly for many months now, and I've looked very closely at the big box stores position, WMC's position, and I've tried to understand why they think they're paying too much in property tax and why this is just not a fair way to determine one's fair share of the tax burden. And I haven't heard them articulate good reasons except we don't like to pay more tax than we have to. Which is fair enough, none of us do. The question is, how do you fairly apportion?
Yeah. So, I want to commend you for your explanation of this. I read several articles on the dark store, and actually, that was the best explanation that I've seen, right? Because it's very thorough. You get the whole back process. So thank you very much for doing that. I see the concern on the precedent, like, how many times they come back, different issues. But I think we're just going to do that on a case-by-case basis. I support providing the funding to the minimum amount that we is suggesting the 1,200. I just think it's what we discussed. This is one of those cases where you got the WMC deals with companies that writing large dollar checks is very simple for them. They don't have to go through a public process and board like this. And some of them are very well funded. These companies are very well financially. And on the other hand, where you have cities, towns, municipalities, but at times, they're more, budgets are lean overall. Cost cutting has been an item that's come up regularly over the last several years. This is that board. So I think there's a chance that we can, we being the village, to help the league to kind of even the playing field on what WMC is going to do on lobbying efforts that they're going to put around this and what we can do. So I think moving forward, I agree, and I kind of take this a little bit of kind of a fair warning, maybe on a case-by-case basis. I think this is kind of a direct item is enough that I think we should do this $1,200 contribution to help fund the league on awareness and lobbying efforts on this issue. Sure. Well, I want to answer some questions first.
Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on this item? Mr. Carter?
It makes you feel better. I've been involved for a week since '94, and I don't remember them ever doing this before. And I did have a long discussion with Jerry, who's the head of the league, and it would, as Fraser said, it will be nonpartisan. They will be focusing their efforts on specific messages in specific districts, where I think they get most effective because they don't have as much money to be effective with their expenditures. So, if that helps you out, that's the position.
Yes, please.
Joe Munson, Wells Fargo. It sounds like it's an effort to broaden the authority of municipalities, because there's an equal likelihood of using a fee-based model that benefits WMC constituents or benefits the residents.
Give us a shot here. I move that we authorize a contribution of $1,200 in funds payable to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities for dark store elimination to support this issue.
Discussion? I might add, as long as we're discussing this, that we will probably be approached in the upcoming months to adopt a model resolution that underscores our position on this issue. Just to give you a heads up on that. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We move to 16, the swimming pool professional assistance proposal from Burbach Aquatics. We'll consider, discuss, and possibly accept a proposal from Burbach Aquatics for the provision of professional services as it relates to the village swimming pool in a potential total amount of $11,125. Mr. Carter, you want to start with this, and then we'll ask Roger Schamberger to present? Is that a logical way to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'll be brief as well. Just because I do request through you to put this on the agenda. And, you know, we're at the point on the pool committee that we really need some professional help. I think we've kind of to the point we're at now, we use kind of what the knowledge we use on a volunteer basis. I say we need some assistance from maybe the last couple of times, and we really do need to have some professional engineering, pool expertise that can kind of come in and help us. And Roger and a colleague of his are here today, and Burbach Aquatics has kind of been in touch with myself and the village and Mike Patterson kind of since the beginning of the concept of do we need a pool or not. And you know, I have some suggestions on the proposal that we have in front of us that was part of the agenda, and we'll kind of get to that a little bit later on in the discussion. But I think for now I wanted to have Roger and his colleagues from Burbach kind of go through, again, we've already asked them, quick background, and then kind of take us through at least the highlights of the proposal. I think we had it in writing here, so we get a chance to look at it and read through it. And at least the background of what Burbach does has been presented to the pool committee back at the end of last summer. So, thank you. Let's go ahead. Yeah, so
you can take it off the stand. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I can raise up that high. Okay, thank you, Marty, village trustees. Scott.
Oh, you got to state your name.
Oh, Roger
Yes, you
Schamberger.
gotta spell your name. Tell us who you're from.
Roger Schamberger, SCHAMBERGER, from Burbach Aquatics. Burbach Aquatics is located in Platteville, Wisconsin, over in the southwest corner. Viola and myself are south of the border versus we're from Illinois, so don't throw us out yet. But I promise I'll keep it under an hour. Okay, shorter than that. Anyway, Burbach Aquatics is an architectural engineering firm. We are in our 40th year of business, and we only work for municipal government, village, town, cities. We did one conservation district, Scott County, Iowa, which is in the Quad Cities area. Our firm is licensed to conduct business in 16 Midwestern and Western states, and we have projects in almost all of them. And where things are at here, my understanding with the pool committee is that they'd like to kick off on the feasibility study, which is our phase 1, step 2. And within that, what we come up with is the opinion of probable construction cost and the opinion of probable operating cost, staffing needs, the utilities, right across the board as far as what it would take to operate a facility to the fact that we're constructed. And the fees, I think, if I'm off, bank, they were $2,675. And you get the equivalent of about an $18,000 to $20,000 study because Burbach Aquatics backloads our fees in doing that. We realize most communities do not have discretionary funds sitting on the shelf this way to be spent, so we keep it right across the board. We use our funds, essentially we're about $3 an hour, and we get the feasibility study put together. And at the end of that, those are the numbers that our firm lives and dies by. And if the facility, were to be constructed, those numbers may be carried forward to a referendum, to a capital campaign. We've just completed the Rushville pool back here opened last year. That was donated by an anonymous donor. And we have that happen every so often. Mr. Burbach, president of our company, called me just before I got out of the van, wanted to let me know, let you folks know that we have a small community. We have a lot of communities under contract. We have a small community out in Nebraska that just passed a 92.6% referendum as a mail-in referendum, which is somewhat pretty unusual. And it was for a $4.4 million project in a community of about 15 to 1,700, some of their population. And it was sales tax and property tax, and that which will fund it. And I think there was about an $800,000 capital campaign added into that funding portion of it. Last night I was in Iowa, it's a community of 2,000, one of our clients, and they're just on the kind of on the winding down about $1 million donor campaign, capital campaign, and they passed a $2.8 million referendum in I think it was March, the first Tuesday in March of this year. And so we see a lot of activity, a lot of growth in the aquatics area. That community is replacing an old one. But today's referendum was our 42nd consecutive one that went through. So just kind of give you an idea of what's going on outside of Fox Point, some of the communities that are in Wyoming to South Dakota, Nebraska, and all the way through. You're not leaving us, are you, sir? Okay. Nope, I was going to say I'll shorten it up to our. It's okay.
I'll say, I was impressed with your materials.
The other thing, if you have questions that go, stop me. I don't have any order procedure on things. But anyway, our firm, one of the questions came through with Andy that was here tonight. He indicated he had a plastic type pool, in-ground pool in his backyard, and he was concerned about these facilities cracking. And the type of pool that Burbach Aquatics designs when it ever gets to that level, is we do we design a double steel reinforced cast in place concrete pool that has a 50-year design life. And I've been with the firm, I just started my 22nd year in June. And in the 39 years that we've had pools in the ground, we still don't have a leaky pool vessel. So it's a tribute to our design, how we put things together, and how long they're going to last. So anyway, back to our phase 1, step 2, which is the feasibility marketing study. There we're going to look at feeding pools. We're going to look at your folks in town. You're pretty much static, I think, as far as growth. And we'll look at a lot of different things, 8 groups and so forth, and work with your pool committee in depth on that. There'll be a number of meetings with those folks and come up with, I think there was 2 different concepts, I believe, Marty, that they're looking at, 2 different locations. And so with that, what we want to do is check on the sizing of them to see if they're a good fit for your community. We certainly do not want a white elephant in Fox Point or anywhere that if something is too small or something is too big, so we're going to look for recommendations that way. And that report will come back to the village board for discussion and then initiation of the next step as we go forward. So the amount on there, I mean, that's certainly something if you want to vote on the whole, you know, phase 1, step 2, step 5, step 6, that's fine. I would encourage you to hire Burbach Aquatics as the very first item, and then initiate the phase 1, step 2 to get the feasibility put together first to see where things are at before you jump into capital campaign and or any kind of referendum support. So I would recommend letting those on the shelf if that's okay. I don't want to run too far down the track, so we have something that we're carrying along.
And in fairness to the board, I did have a conversation. I also spoke to Marty and I spoke to Roger as well before tonight about, you know, whether or not, and this is the board's decision, but whether or not the board thought that we should be, and this is down the road, if we should be engaging in the referendum support, the fundraising support component of this survey. You know, my personal experience in the past is, and I use the line with Mike West all the time, it was the first time with the Nicolay referendum, and Mike loved it. We are Switzerland, and, you know, we just let the citizens decide. We don't do that. And I have told you all, I think in the past, my experience with the library. Shannon asked me with the library. The city council said, we'll send it to referendum, even though we don't need to, because they could have sold that. And the only statement they made was, whatever you voters vote for, that's what we'll do. And that was the last word they said on the subject until the polls were counted. And they were Switzerland. And there was a private group that did fundraising, and a private group that pushed the referendum, and obviously there's a group that didn't want the referendum, and that's what they did. So, just so you all know, I did have that conversation with Roger prior to the meeting, that there may be some concerns about that, so just for full disclosure.
Yeah, again, I was impressed with the materials, and I commend the pool committee for locating your firm, and you obviously bring a lot of experience and relevant skills to the process. I too had questions about the referendum, but I'm a little bit view on the, I thought, first of all, on conceptual planning, step number 2, I think you're providing a lot for the money, and I think it's well worth this board authorizing that. The way I see this happening, I agree with the manager that the board needs to take this to a point and then step back and let see it if we can sort of sink or swim. That's a good one. Anyway, but I think I have a little different view on the next phase, the number 5 fundraising planning. I think that is one, and just sort of getting direction and definition to that process is the one thing that ad hoc citizen groups really struggle with. And we don't need to address that now, but I wouldn't be opposed to in fact, I think it's in our interest as a governing body to help that process be successful, because the more money they raise, the less money comes from the village as a whole, if that's what we end up doing. So anyway, I guess I would support funding the step 2, and I don't have a question for you.
Sorry.
Mr. Graham?
I want to echo everything that Trustee Fox said about your materials and everything, and commend Marty and a lot of effort, lots of effort work. As far as the sites, does it make sense to spend money analyzing some sites that will ultimately just not work, and would not be, will just go down? I'm thinking maybe we should have a, not pre-approved, but maybe we should think of sites that are that would actually, we would pass as, if we were moving the pool somewhere else. I think in one particular site, that South Longacre, the pavilion, I just don't think that's going to fly. That may be just me, but I think it might be every neighbor around the area as well. So to spend money analyzing whether that site would work or not, seems frivolous.
North Long Acre, right?
Mr. Trotter?
What did you say?
No, I just throwing out, but
Yeah.
I want to actually ask you a question. I've seen the beautiful pools. Is it about an average of 4 acres would do it?
Give or take, depending on the parking. And
Does that include Irving?
that one, you're behind you at Hartford, I believe that,
This is 4.25 acres.
yeah, that I believe would be,
Well, the parking is off the picture.
correct, and I believe that services another area as well. And that's part of our phase 1, step 2 work. But let me answer your question further in reference to whether it's a good site or a bad site. And within that phase 1, step 2, we conduct an engineer's rating. It's all the same stipulated fee. It doesn't cost the village anything more to do that. And I know there was 2 sites, I think, that were talked about in discussion. There may be 4 or 5 more that are out there that could be put into the ones that we can look at. And what we do is we provide an engineer's rating, and there's 19 different criteria that are brought into the evaluation. And that would be, is it a floodplain? Is there 3-phase power? Does it have adequate water service? Does it have, sewer service and stormwater? And, as far as traffic, that folks get there, easily in their vehicles or, or bicycles or walking. And so there's a lot of things that come into play that's included within that phase 1, step 2. And so, yeah, you can add, rather than throw out, I would encourage you to throw in some more sites that we can, and whether they're owned by the village or they're, privately owned, we'll certainly take a look at them, and we're not going to alert the owners that we're, there for a few minutes or whatever, looking things over and doing some research on them. So, but we encourage that, to add more to it.
Right now, we only looking at 2 sites, so I kind of need to not have something to compare, so part of our challenge is that there aren't a lot of other possible sites in the village as we're built up. But I guess I would encourage police to even if it doesn't seem necessarily like it's as good as the 2 sites we have, or for whatever reason, if there's other possibilities out there, take a look at them, and I think it'll become pretty clear which site is, or sites are practical. So I wouldn't eliminate, I understand some of the issues with Long Acre North, but I wouldn't eliminate it at this stage.
Yeah, I feel the same way about that. I think we've had a lot of preliminary discussions on this issue and eliminated, at least before Burbach came on the scene, a number of potential sites. I think the 2 leading sites are North Long Acre and the present site where the pool is. And I think that's probably should be our principal basis of comparison. There may be pluses and minuses, there may be some feasibility issues, but I think your firm can shed a lot of light on these questions.
I would like to address that as well too. We've done some work on it already. The first group that we worked with, they did a full GIS analysis of all the properties in the village of Fox Point. There was South Long Acre, we was able to look at Indian Creek, and some of the issues that MSD and things like that there eliminated that way. I think, we can and be open-minded, but I think we're at the point where we really have kind of, like Eric said, we all know this over here. This is a built-out, developed community. There's really very little open land. So I think we have two locations, and I really don't want to. I like the point that you made, Bill, is that I do think the committee actually brought this up at some point in time in the future. I think they're actually looking for direction from actually this village board as to which of the 1 or 2 sites we're going to focus on. I think part of this process is going to help take us there. And I want to be open-minded to both sides. I've actually, since we had the community design solution, solutions in the CDS team to be done, and we had that board, display board, and had that at that village open house. I've actually talked to some of the neighbors that live around North Long Acre, and actually some of them were either haven't generated an opinion yet, or they're actually favorable to having it at North Long Acre. These people live within a block of there, and there's some significant reasons why that's a potential option. Primarily one of them is financial. And at some point in this process too, we're going to get, as we move forward, is we conduct this cost-benefit analysis. That's going to be a significant factor in the decision of whether we build a pool or not, particularly in light of the fact that there is a lot of competition around here as opposed to some other areas. The sites that we're looking at are slightly more than 2 acres that were identified in some of the UM studies. There's some examples over here that are in that as well too. There's a site that's less than 2 acres, so it's possible. You're not going to be able to, put in a lazy river water park plus swim lanes plus a kiddie, it's like, yeah, you're going to have to identify this part of this need demand analysis is going to help us. As part of the takeaway from this is like the need demand analysis will help us identify what are the kind of priority things that the community wants versus what are probably some of the less priority things. We have made some progress on that too. I do want to address that too. Like my suggestion, and Roger, you brought this up, was I think for now there's some precedent reasons and possibly some legal reasons that we should shelve for the time being the parts having to do with the fundraising, the capital campaign, and the referendum. I think those need to be worked on within the committee or within, Scott Botcher and myself and I, or those president and you, President Frazier, before we kind of move forward with the revamping. I'm glad you're nodding your head, Eric. There's some. We had some precedent there on past developments, and we need to kind of make sure that we're following some of those. We learn things from that. So what I like about this phase 1, step 2 that I was trying to move forward with is I think we can do the 2 sites, but be open-minded if something else would pop up. One question I had too was this on number 7, the conceptual plan of proposed facilities is, I know a lot of times engineering firms they like to kind of come up with their own pictures, but we have a nice one that UUM CDS has developed. Again, it's a conceptual drawing, but it's gone through a public process. We had a public meeting that helped develop that. It's utilized some surveying. I think we can kind of use that in this process. So I would like to encourage us as we work together to use that material as well. But I really like the takeaway any project. What are the takeaways that we're going to get out of it? And I think for a very very affordable rate, so you identify, Roger. I think this the technical site analysis of a couple sites, the detailed need demand analysis where you really are comparing the competitive nature of this, and we do have competition here as opposed to some more rural areas. And then the other one was I think this probable construction costs, because what we're kind of dealing with now is anywhere from $2 million to $8 million. That's a huge kind of pie, open, obtuse angle. But you got to come up with a more analogy if I could. So I'll leave that too. If we can kind of get that somewhat more narrowed down, I think that's going to help us in this financial analysis of really kind of what that financial picture looks like. Versus 2 to 8 million is kind of a large amount. So I think those takeaways from this would really kind of help us again to kind of move forward, and that would give us some time to work with a little more internally on this, on the fundraising and the referendum support. And certainly, if we have a good partnership, we can utilize you or have an independent group that can work with you. That would be my suggestion is on this. I would like to move ahead and kind of help the community get the next step. Is this phase 1, step 2, and then for the time being, we can kind of put the pause button on the fundraising and
come up at a later point in the process.
Mr. Manager?
Yeah, I just had one question about, we not talked financials before on the phone. And under item 9, it says, you may have this memorized, but maybe not.
Probably not.
Verbacher Aquatics will evaluate and incorporate owner and community comments in the final conceptual plan. Individual components of the proposed facility will be analyzed, taking into consideration such issues such as maintenance, probable operating cost impacts, impact on the quality of environment and aquatic environment and serviceability. Anywhere in there is there a revenue component that's considered?
What's your,
I mean, because obviously, if we're going to do a probable operating cost impact, and as Marty said, once we get some of this stuff and we start morphing this, the capital stuff kind of comes off of that, but the operational costs, in theory, we want to offset as much as those as you can by revenues. And I guess, is there a revenue component? I mean, if you're going to analyze what kind of pool, maybe what size of pool, the different locations, it would have seemed to me that you'd be able to incorporate a revenue component, which frankly to us is kind of important.
Very important. If we would hesitate to build a really nice pool that hemorrhages huge amounts of money, even more than we're subsidizing our current pool at for the next 50 years. So
Before capital.
Before capital. So it's an important question.
yeah, what we'll do is, it's again, the opinion of probable construction cost, and it's going to be sized to your community, you know, taking into consideration all the competing pools, your population, not only current needs, but a 25-year projection on your population. And then more importantly, on the bottom line is the city don't want a white elephant in your community, and that's the opinion of probable operating costs. We're going to come up with what revenue is anticipated, what expenses are anticipated, and where it's going to fall in place.
Okay, so when you develop your revenue projections, I want a Cliff Note version because that's how do you do that? How do you come up with the revenue projections?
We look at the person population, and then we bring back into the typical age group, you know, the amount of swimmers on any given day that will be available to come to your pool, minus the competing pools. We take that number out of your square footage recommendation for your pool. For example, your population as is may say, geez, you need a 12,000 square foot pool. I'm just pulling the number out of the air. But you take out your competing pool factor, it might be back to 9,000 square feet. And within that, then we look at the number of potential users for your pool, swimmers. We correct that. Back when I was a kid, took swimming lessons long time ago. 100% of the folks that went to the pool went to swim. And now it's 70% come to socialize and 30% actually come to swim. So I'll correct that, you know, available swimmers on any given day. We'll come in with that number and we'll use a percentage value, and it's based on 85% of your population. I can't give you the exact method that we use off the top of my head, but it's a conservative number that we're going to come back and say we'll recommend you know, this amount of square footage. Your square footage then is based on 15 square foot per swimmer, and so there'll be a number that we're going to put in, a static number, and that number then we'll do a projection on your growth or population erosion, whatever it's going to be in 25 years, and then come back with a number from there. So it's a...
But you realize, and that's all good, but none of that is financial.
It is.
So do you come up with some sort of elasticity in pricing that we should charge? I mean, I'm looking at Mike back there trying to charge Whitefish Bay people what you charge for the annual pass, right? And I mean, I think your proposal's good, but I think the revenue component is going to be really, really important. And I get the sizing component, but regardless of size, if we build a 10,000 square foot pool and we charge people $1,000 a year for a pool pass, that means one thing on the revenue side as opposed to charging them $10 a year on a pool pass. So how do you come up with your revenue projections regardless of the size of the componentry?
The main factor is, Scott, that we'll bring into the equation what your community access facilities are now and what they're charging. Okay. We're going to factor that in. So if the average, in town, so to speak, pool pass is,
$100 maybe.
well, yeah, $100. And Whitefish Bay, resident might come in and say it's $175 for, a family of 4, whatever it's gonna come out to be, we'll come up with recommendations for that. Then we're gonna use our factor of, 5% of 85% or 6% or whatever it's gonna be of 85% of available swimmers. We'll come back with that number and say on any given day, you're gonna have an average of X amount of swimmers at your pool.
And that would, okay, so what you'll do is you'll come up with an assumable rate and revenue stream.
Right.
We can then draw conclusions as to whether or not, and certainly Mike, whether or not we find those to be realistic, but at least they'll give us some sort of assumable revenue stream, or it'll communicate to us what the revenue stream needs to be to support the operation of whatever size pool you determine that a community should have.
Right.
I just want to make sure that if you all bless this tonight, and it's clear to you, you guys can do what you want, because I don't get the vote. But as the manager, I will be on the phone with you, obviously, because you know I will.
Yep.
And ask you the questions on the finance side, say, okay, show me where the revenue is. And I guess we can draw the determination as to the elasticity, the price points, and whether or not we're competitive in the marketplace. Because if we're not competitive, we're not going to get bodies to go. So I just want to make sure the revenue componentry is relatively clear.
That's the numbers we live and die by.
One thing that we can help you on is that the pool committee we have a spreadsheet that did compare the other public pools in the Milwaukee area, what they charge for family, individual, resident, non-resident. Obviously, the country clubs are different because that's kind of a different pricing model. But I think we can share that with you, and we can plug that into the calculation that you do on population and potential population. Certainly, I don't think it would work with just like a slight increase when we develop new buildings and structure. But on the financial side of it too, I want to ask a question on the reimbursables. Just because it's pretty obvious you're coming from a long way in Platteville. How do you, and you give some other clients as well, so how do you kind of keep the reimbursables at a reasonable rate?
We state the number of trips within the phase 1, step 2, that they're included. And then back in the back end of the proposal is the charges in there per mile, for 50 cents or whatever it is per mile. We keep track of that very, very, very tightly. So we don't want to spend any more taxpayer money than necessary. Mr. Burbach is a very frugal individual when it comes to that. He'll watch out for the taxpayers' dollars and cents, closer than anyone. So that they're stated in the back there. Obviously, you're close enough. I don't think there are many overnights or anything like that. So, and we can come up with an estimate on that too if you want.
How comfortable I think is the board here with that? Have you done anything where it's like a not to exceed a certain amount?
Yeah, I guess what I would do, because and we have other people that do this.
Yeah.
And if I see something I don't want to pay, I don't pay it. And I don't think for this, I'm comfortable with, if it gets to be too much, I just say I'm not going to pay it.
I think we could work with you too, just on Mike's. I'm sure you've done this in your history as well too. Is just making the most of your trips. Come on some of these trips to do some of the analysis, like when the committee meets or when you have a committee here.
We do that.
We kind of do that. It's not.
And it's a matter of timing for us too, is just to, lump as many things in as we can when we're coming over, absolutely. No, we don't, we have enough things going on that we're not gonna just go, hey, it's a nice day, let's take a drive. Closest facility that we've done up here is, for Milwaukee County Park System is at Wichita, which I'm trying to think of, Whittigo. Off the beach from 7th, I think. And that was quite a number of years ago.
Well, Hartford too is also Hartford.
Mr. Crowder?
So are we just contemplating approving phase 1, step 2 for 2675?
Yeah, I think so.
So I'll just call the motion.
Can I interrupt for a second? you would call, like I said a little bit earlier, call the motion to hire Burbach Aquatics and initiate phase 1, step 2. And then down the road, if there's another step that you know, 6 months, 12 months from now, whatever it's gonna be, you go, you know, we'd really like to do that capital campaign or have a committee do that, then you would go to initiate step 5 at that point.
Well, let's ask the village attorney how we best phrase this motion.
Well, that kind of responded what I was, see, what my idea was going to be that we take your agreement and we modify it to deal only with phase 1, step 2. Because that's where the consensus seems to lie, is that we would authorize the feasibility study for the $2,675 plus reimbursables. And take out the other stuff because that's not being approved. I don't see anything about initiating, I haven't spent any time with this agreement, but I don't see anything that says, if we enter this agreement, it looks like we're going to owe you for all 3 of these steps, not just one.
I can send over a new professional service agreement that just has a phase 1, step 2 in there. I can easily do that. But to answer your question, the motion would be to hire Burbach Aquatics and initiate the step 2. We will not do a standalone for $2,600 and have a nice day. We're not going to put our dollars and cents out on the line to do that. We have a very unique process, and you're the only one you're risking is for the step 2 because you're initiating that. But again, we're working for $3 an hour. If the project doesn't get funded, doesn't get voted out, we shake hands and leave. It's that simple.
What happens if the village decides not to proceed?
Then we act up on the home. But we want to work for the village, but, you know, there again, we won't come, you know, to the table with the standalone step 2. You will do that service, and you're not obligated to move forward. There's a 5-year abandonment clause in there that you can abandon the project and set on the shelf.
So this is, you're speaking of a different agreement than what we have.
No, it's within the proposal. But what you have is the services that Marty and I talked about, and that was the step 2, step 5, and step 6. But we'll certainly back the 5 and 6 out of there and come forward with just a phase 1, step 2 for the feasibility study.
Okay, so I think we're talking past one another, because that's where I started, is we only want phase 1, step 2.
Right.
And if we took what you gave us and took out everything but phase 1, step 2, is that what you're saying?
Yes, but
That's okay.
yeah. But you would make a motion to hire a firm and initiate the step 2. That's how we clarify that.
Well, I think the point that the village attorney is making is that we have to approve the agreement we want to approve tonight.
Right.
Well, we are not in a position to approve a portion of the agreement that we may not reach, or we may need to change, or ask to change.
Well, if you like, we can certainly cross that out and I'll initial it and we'll accept that.
Well, here's the motion that I would recommend. I move to approve the agreement with Burbach Aquatics. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. For phase 1, step 2, facility study services of $2,675 plus reimbursables, subject to the agreement being put in final form as approved by the village manager and approved by the village attorney as to form.
Is that okay with you, Mr. Schomburg?
Yeah, just to go back to the phase 1, step 2.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, so, Mr. Feinstein.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear on this because I still think I'm hearing slightly different versions. The way I read this agreement that was before us, it only commits the village to whatever is in, specifically in here, but I heard, I guess, is that by having this, the first paragraph of the agreement saying that this is an agreement between Fox Point and Burbach for professional services for the repair, renovation, replacement of the pool, that somehow conveys that we're committing ourselves to more than just phase one. And I just want to be clear that that's not our intention, and if you're okay with that. We're not, I understand you saying that the reason you're only charging, $26.75 for this work is because you structure your fees so that they're low at the beginning and then you make your money for the later phases. But we aren't, I think that what I'm hearing from my colleagues here is that all we want to commit to at this point is phase one, step two. There may not be anything.
Yes, what Burbach Aquatics typical standard agreement with our clients is that you would make a motion to hire Burbach Aquatics for the project, but you're only going to initiate the phase one, step two. That's all the dollars and cents you're liable for.
Yeah, and that's not what we're talking about. I think what we're talking about is just hiring you for phase one, step two. May very well be that we'll hire you for more, but that's, that's all we're prepared to do tonight.
Well, we fully understand that. Not every project that Burbach Aquatics gets hired for moves forward. But from the protection point of our end, is that we come in and do the 18 to 20 grand worth of real services, that if the project does move forward, that our firm then performs the work when it's voted on by the village board.
That's where the difference is, I think.
Well,
it sounds
Well,
like
I think until we see it on paper, we aren't going to know that we're saying the same thing.
If there's a substantial, and I think Eric's probably right, then, I think we need to get this pinned down before we vote.
Yeah.
I get that sense, and I frankly, I get what you're saying, I don't totally disagree with it. I don't understand, and I don't want to go into it really, I shouldn't even say it, but I'm not even sure what protection of Burbach Aquatics you're getting.
Well,
By the way you have it written.
I think
You don't preclude us from hiring somebody else to do the second two phases if we choose to do it. There's nothing in there that says we can't go hire a person.
no, and that's where I think there's two things being said.
I get it,
I think because I think there's another agreement that we haven't seen.
That's fine.
That is more their standard model, which says if you retain us as and initiate phase one, then you are bound to us. And that's, we need to see that, or have a clean agreement that just says phase one,
Or
step two.
alternatively, we could just pay market rates for the work that is in phase one, step two.
You could do that. I think we could work something out there, be a much, higher stipulated
Well, I
fee.
would expect so.
But what we would do is, the project moves forward, and I'll clear this before I put my final stamp on it, but, then what we would do is credit back, some of the differences there, so it's fair to you guys too. So I'll talk to, Mr. Burbach tomorrow and see what we come up with.
For the record, my inclination is to not do that, because I think we've been paid the Senate to move ahead with phase two and with the crediting back thing. I think this is simply, and I hate to negotiate public like this, we'll just do, but I think that it's in the village's best interest to say if we want to pay for the first part at $2,700, and if you want to do that, great. If not, then we probably need to figure something else out. That's just me.
Mr. Perrin?
Ultimately, we're gonna get to a point where we're gonna propose a new pool. And we are gonna move forward to a point where we're gonna propose a new pool somehow, right?
Well, we don't know that yet.
Well,
We haven't even taken a strong poll on the
Let's
question.
close the existing pool and fill it up. I mean, we're gonna do something after phase one, step two. I think he has a point. They're investing some resources to really, do a good job. But we have a point, we don't wanna commit necessarily beyond phase one. So I like the idea of paying more for phase one. And if we continue on with the firm, then we get some, then we would get some good credit as we continue on with the different phases. But I think that needs to be worked out.
The numbers that we come up with in the phase one, step two, are the numbers that, you could go to bid with and, do a capital campaign towards whatever it's gonna be. Those are real numbers. Those aren't, the $2 million to $8 million. It'll be a finished construction cost, black and white, and we broke down all the different components of what the facility's gonna be.
Yeah, because we're gonna go ahead to a final proposal. We're gonna move forward after phase one, whether it's with the gentleman's firm or somebody else.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, then we have to close the pool then.
Well, we could, that's an option.
I don't think that's an option, that's really not that seriously discussed. I think we're moving forward at least to the point of getting something firm. And this is just the first step that this firm wants to do, so,
Sure.
I see the logic of he's investing resources and he wants to continue on the job. We don't want to commit right now, so pay him more and work out some credits for the second.
Well, we could pay them more without working our credits. We could just pay him pay the firm a fair hourly rate for phase one, step two, and then reevaluate.
Well, I think it's clear that we don't have that tonight.
No,
We don't have, so I don't think we can really act on anything.
I think we could act on something if we had a little leap of faith that you do the work on phase one and if we move forward, we're going to move forward with your firm.
Well, that may be premature. I mean, I am impressed with the presentation and I'm impressed with your work. It's beautiful.
I like all the pictures here.
But this is the first time we've met, and
I can certainly come back.
I'm not sure I think it's more, maybe we need in the next meeting, it's like one proposal this is the market rate what we charge if we didn't move forward with it. And one that's this rate with the obligation that if it is approved, we are going to build a pool that we work with Burbach Aquatics on. It's really the construction management side of it is where the real kind of paying for your true overhead comes in as that percentage.
Well,
There was a full proposal, we said like kind of the whole thing a while back, a year ago. I kind of had that, it was like a percentage of the construction project. Right?
Well, it was the full proposal for the project, Marty,
Yeah.
it was. And and I can certainly send that proposal out to, by email to the group here too. But, one thing I want to point out is that with other firms, say we did the phase one, step two, and came up with X amount of dollars, and then the board is agreeable to that, and we worked out a funding mechanism, how it's going to come together. If you bring another firm in, I'm going to almost, I'm not an insurance expert, but I'm almost going to guarantee you that their E&O is going to want them to go through that study on the front end too before they dig their heels into it. And that's just something that we put this down the road. And that's why we make it affordable on the front end. And if you like our firm great, then, we use the analogy sometimes, if you want to date, that's one thing, but if you want to get married and do that, you control the process, the progress and forward movement of the project. And if you abandon the project, then there's a time period to wait, and you can go about the business. We keep it as simple as that.
so is there a sense of the board that we should table this and put it over to the next meeting?
I think we should send them back with support that we can vote on next week.
All right, very good. I move to table this to the August 2018 meeting.
Second.
Discussion? Before we vote, anyone from the audience? Did I ask before? Anyone wants to speak to this? Okay. All those in favor, aye? Opposed? All right, we'll come back and see you next month.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Future agenda item 7, the board will discuss and act on any trustee's request to place additional matters on the upcoming agenda without discussion. Any future agenda items, colleagues? Hearing none, we'll move to announcements. I think I'll start. I would like to thank everybody who assisted in the 4th of July parade, which was, I feel, a tremendous success, starting with the police department, fire and rescue. The Fox Point Foundation, who sponsored and is largely in charge of the parade, Jamie Brock, president, did a wonderful job. Things were a little different this year with the kids decorating their bicycles and leading the parade. We had Nicolay High School band perform. We had the Garden Club. We had politicians. We had good representation from the board, including Trustee Sumner, who was wearing 2 hats. One is a trustee and one is a candidate for District 23 State Assembly. We had Trustee Tirado, Trustee Kravitz, Trustee Ullman, and we had our very first, the Weed Commissioner Brown's very first Miss Invasive Species, our very own Mari Katz, yes, the wife of Trustee Bill Katz, and she was commendable in her role.
Which is very invasive.
No, she's not. So it was a great event. It's a 4-block parade. It lasts 20 minutes, and everybody gets to have ice cream at 9:20 in the morning. Who wouldn't want to come to that? So thanks to all who participated and all who made it happen. Mr. Fonstead?
I met with the forester and the director of public works to start a conversation about the issue of ash trees on private property. It's something that the board will no doubt become more aware of. I'll just say that we have a comprehensive ordinance that requires homeowners with diseased trees on their property who have been given notice by the village to remove them at their cost and remove the material from the village. That's going to be a very significant fiscal issue for the village because if DPW had to remove all the dying ash trees from private property, citizens might stack up on the roadway, it would overwhelm the department. So I just wanted to give a brief preview of that.
Mr. Tirado?
I just pulled it up. Now, the Fox Point Foundation Summer Serenade is July 18th from 6 to 8:30 in Long Acre Pavilion. Food from Dr. Dog and Miss Cupcake, plus music. That's it.
Mr. Crowder?
I just want to say I really have enjoyed the podcast.
Mr. Manager?
Just a few things. One was I introduced Jeannie O'Brien to you, our new deputy clerk treasurer, but at 9 o'clock she left. I understand that. 2, we had a meeting today, Mike and I did, with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Insurance that we're part of. And just a couple good pieces of good news. Our dividend actually doubled this year. So we received a check, almost $30,000 for a dividend check, which is nice to have. The rates that the state released, which was just today, right, Mike? Today, I have them all here, nobody cares but me, but all the rates rates are down unless you have an electric light or power company, they remain flat, which is good. And our estimated mod factor going forward, now we're not complete with 18 yet, but it looks like our mod factor will go down from 1.06 to 0.98, which is a significant drop. And so we've been trying to enforce and encourage enhanced safety practices. Always, it's starting to pay off as these years roll down the pike. In case you're keeping score at home, the salt bid you approved tonight is $10 a ton higher than it was last year. So we are seeking, that's a consortium, the county and city, we all buy our salt together, but we are potentially sourcing other sources for salt for next year. We are making sure that we purchase our salt. We want to have it enough that we can fill the bin up, and there's like 600 tons back there now. If we can make part of our commitment expenditure after the first of the year, then it will be a 2019 expense, and we can maybe pick up some salt at a lower price to either this market price drops or we find another supplier. So that's kind of something we're working on with Public Works. And this is my 3rd anniversary.
Congratulations.
Seems longer, right? There's no cake.
There being no further issues or items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
That was